10 habits. That is the distance between the home you have right now and the home you have always wanted. Not 10 products. Not 10 organizing systems. Not 10 weekends of deep cleaning. 10 small, specific, daily habits that Japanese homemakers have practiced for generations and that together make a permanently messy home essentially impossible. I know you have tried things before. I know you have reorganized and decluttered and bought the bins and followed the routines and still ended up back in the same place. And I want to tell you something important about why that keeps happening. It is not because you are doing the wrong things. It is because you are missing the foundational behaviors that make everything else work. The habits that happen before the mess forms. The practices so small and so consistent that they become invisible. And that invisibility is exactly what makes them so powerful. Every habit I am sharing today is one you have not heard from me before. These are not the morning reset, not the evening tidy, not the shoe removal at the door. These are 10 different, specific, deeply Japanese practices that address the parts of home management that most advice never reaches. Some of them will surprise you. Some will feel almost too simple, but every single one of them works. And together they create something remarkable. Let's go through all 10. Habit 1. The designated landing zone. Every home has landing zones, the places where things naturally get dropped when people walk in. Keys, bags, mail, phones, jackets. In most American homes, these landing zones are accidental. They form wherever is most convenient, and they become permanent clutter magnets because there is no system controlling what happens there. Japanese homemakers create intentional landing zones. A small tray for keys and small items. A specific hook for the bag that comes in and out daily. A single designated surface near the entry where incoming items live temporarily before being processed. The zone is small, visible, and limited in capacity, which means it physically cannot accumulate beyond a certain point. The key difference is that the Japanese landing zone has a processing rule attached to it. Items placed there are processed within 24 hours, mail opened and handled, bags unpacked and put away, items returned to their permanent homes. The landing zone is a temporary holding area with a deadline, not a permanent storage solution. This single habit eliminates the entry clutter that most American homes live with indefinitely. Habit 2. The single tasking kitchen rule. In Japanese home culture, the kitchen is used for one thing at a time. You do not start cooking a new dish while the previous one is still being plated. You do not begin chopping vegetables while the pan is being washed. Each task completes before the next begins. This sounds like a cooking principle. It is actually a mess prevention principle. Kitchen chaos, the overwhelming post-cooking disaster that makes the kitchen look like a catastrophe, is almost entirely the result of parallel tasking that leaves multiple unfinished processes active simultaneously. Multiple pots, multiple cutting boards, multiple ingredient packages, multiple used utensils, all open and in use at the same time. Single tasking in the kitchen means one thing finishes and gets cleaned or put away before the next thing starts. The cutting board gets wiped and set aside before the pan goes on. The prep area gets cleared before serving begins. The result is a kitchen that never reaches the state of overwhelm that makes post-meal cleaning such a dreaded event. Habit 3. The paper elimination system. Paper is one of the most overlooked sources of household clutter in American homes. Mail, school notices, receipts, magazines, takeout menus, instruction manuals, catalogs, paper enters the home in a constant stream and has no natural exit without an intentional system to handle it. Japanese homemakers apply what I call the immediate paper decision. Every piece of paper that enters the home gets handled the moment it arrives. Not placed on a surface to deal with later, handled immediately. One of three things happens to it. It is acted upon right now if it requires action. It is filed if it needs to be kept. Or it is discarded if it serves no ongoing purpose. Most paper that enters homes falls into the third category. The catalog that arrived without being requested. The receipt for a purchase that does not need returning. The takeout menu from a restaurant you order from using an app. These items enter the home, land on a surface, and stay there for weeks because no decision was ever made about them. The immediate paper decision eliminates this entirely. Paper never accumulates because it never gets the chance to wait. Habit 4. The functional beauty standard. Japanese aesthetic sensibility has a concept called kansad, the principle of eliminating the non-essential to reveal what is genuinely meaningful. Applied to home decoration, it means that every decorative element in a Japanese home serves a dual purpose. It is beautiful and it is functional. A beautiful ceramic bowl that also holds fruit. A hand-woven basket that also stores items. A wooden tray that is also a surface organizer. In American homes, decoration and function are typically separated. We have decorative items that serve no function, figurines, knickknacks, collections of objects that exist purely visually. And we have functional items that we consider too ugly to display. This separation means we own twice as many things as we need. The functional beauty standard asks of every object, is this both beautiful enough to be visible and useful enough to earn its place? Items that are functional but ugly get replaced over time with items that are both. Items that are beautiful but useless are released. The result is a home that contains fewer things, looks more intentional, and requires significantly less maintenance because every object has a job to do. Habit 5. The communal responsibility system. In Japanese households, maintaining the home is not one person's responsibility. It is a shared responsibility distributed across every member of the household according to their age and capability. Children as young as 3 years old participate in age-appropriate home maintenance tasks. This is not about chores as punishment or chores as obligation. It is about the cultural understanding that living in a space creates responsibility for that space. The practical result is that one person is never carrying the entire maintenance load of the home alone. When 5 people each take responsibility for specific small tasks, the total effort per person is a fraction of what it would be if one person handled everything. In an American home, this habit starts with one conversation that establishes the principle, everyone who lives here contributes to keeping it clean, and then assigns specific, age-appropriate, non-negotiable tasks to each person. Not requests, not reminders. Defined responsibilities that are as automatic as any other daily routine. Habit 6. The transition pause. In Japanese home culture, there is a practiced awareness of the moments when you move from one activity to another, and a habit of using those transitional moments to restore the space you are leaving before you enter the space you are going to. Before leaving the kitchen to go to the living room, you take 30 seconds to ensure the kitchen is in its baseline state. Before leaving the bedroom to go to the bathroom, you straighten the 1 or 2 things that need straightening. Before settling onto the couch for the evening, you do a 30-second pass of the living area. None of these individual moments take more than a minute, but they occur multiple times per day at the natural transition points between activities. And their cumulative effect is that the home is constantly being micro-maintained throughout the day without any dedicated cleaning time at all. The home never drifts far from its baseline because every transition is an opportunity to bring it back. Habit 7. The packaging removal habit. This habit is so specific and so practical that once you start doing it, you will wonder how you lived without it. In Japanese homes, packaging is removed from products immediately upon entering the home, not when you put things away, not when you eventually need to use them. Immediately. Groceries come out of plastic bags and go directly into containers or the refrigerator without the bags. New purchases come out of their retail packaging and go to their designated home without the box. Items bought in bulk get decanted into smaller, more manageable containers rather than sitting in their original oversized packaging. The reason this matters is that retail packaging is designed for selling, not for living with. It is bulky. It is visually noisy. It does not stack or store efficiently. And it makes every cabinet and refrigerator look cluttered regardless of how organized you try to be. Removing packaging immediately means your storage spaces hold more, look calmer, and are easier to navigate. It takes 2 extra minutes when putting things away. It saves significant time and frustration every time you look for something. Habit 8. This habit operates on a longer time cycle than the others, but is responsible for preventing the slow, almost invisible accumulation that is the most insidious form of household clutter. 4 times a year, aligned with the changing of seasons, Japanese homemakers conduct what I call a possession audit of one specific category of household items. Not a whole house declutter, one category. Clothing for the upcoming season as it comes out of storage. Kitchen tools as cooking patterns shift from summer to winter. Children's items as they age out of toys and into different activities. Books, media, hobby supplies. The seasonal audit catches accumulation before it reaches crisis level. It evaluates each category at the natural moment when it is most relevant, as you are transitioning into using it, which means decisions about what stays and what goes are made from a practical, realistic perspective rather than an abstract one. Things that were not used last season and will not be used next season have a clear answer. Habit 9. The sound environment habit. This habit is the most unexpected one on this list and possibly the most counterintuitive, but it has a direct and measurable impact on how tidy a home stays over time. Japanese homemakers are deliberate about the sound environment of the home. Specifically, they are deliberate about the relationship between background noise and focus. Research on domestic environments consistently shows that homes with constant background television, which describes the majority of American households, have measurably higher levels of unaddressed clutter than homes without it. The mechanism is straightforward. Background television creates a state of partial distraction that is just engaging enough to prevent the kind of focused attention that notices and addresses small tasks. The glass on the coffee table, the item out of place, the thing that needs to be returned to its home. Japanese home culture values quiet, not silence necessarily, but intentional sound rather than constant background noise. When the television is on, it is being watched. When no one is watching, it is off. This practice keeps the level of environmental stimulation at a point where the brain remains able to notice and respond to the small signals that a home sends when things need attention. Habit 10. The grateful closing. The final habit is the most philosophical but in many ways the most transformative. In Japanese culture, there is a practice of closing, formally ending activities and the use of spaces with a moment of intentional completion. Applied to the home, the grateful closing is a 30-second practice performed when you finish using any significant space. You look at the space. You restore it to its baseline, not a deep clean, simply its resting state. And you leave it ready for the next use rather than ready to be rescued from the previous one. The kitchen after a meal. The bathroom after your morning routine, the bedroom after getting dressed, the living room after an evening of use. Each space gets a 30-second closing before you move on. No space is ever left in a state of active disorder because every session of use has a formal ending. This habit changes your relationship to your home at a fundamental level. When you close spaces intentionally, you begin to experience your home as a series of curated environments that you move through with care, rather than a continuous space that absorbs your activity and deteriorates passively around you. 10 habits is not an overwhelming number if you approach them correctly. The mistake is trying to install all 10 simultaneously. The method that works is sequential adoption, one habit at a time, 2 weeks per habit, until each one is automatic before the next is added. Start with the habit that addresses your most painful problem. If entry clutter is what bothers you most, start with the designated landing zone. If kitchen chaos is your biggest stress point, start with single tasking. If paper drives you insane, start there. 2 weeks of consistent practice with one habit. Then add the next. 20 weeks from today, 5 months. All 10 habits are in place, and the home you live in will be a fundamentally different environment from the one you are living in now. Not because you cleaned more, because you built the practices that make the mess itself almost impossible to create. That is the Japanese understanding of a tidy home, not a cleaned home. A home where the conditions for mess are systematically removed one habit at a time until what remains is simply the natural state of the space, calm, ordered, and genuinely yours.